Dash dash dash. The storm hadn't even started, yet the sky was already swollen gray and heavy with silence. Dust twirled at the feet of a lonely figure on the edge of the abandoned road, her clothes torn, her eyes wide, and her body trembling with the weight of unspoken stories. She didn't ask for sympathy. She didn't beg for help. She simply looked up at him, eyes sunken with fear, and said, "Hold me. Use me. Just get me out of here." He was a rancher, nothing more, nothing less. A man who lived with cattle, not people. A man who spoke to the winds more than to women. But something in her voice didn't ask, it begged. And something in him cracked open. He had come into town for feed. That's all. Just feed and a wrench to fix the damn water pump. But now here he stood, face to face with a woman the town refused to acknowledge. No one in the general store mentioned her. No one talked about what had happened on the east side of town. People avoided the broken windows and the darkened barn like it was haunted. But she was real, flesh and blood, and standing right there in front of his truck like she belonged to no one. Maybe she never had. "Get in," he said quietly. She didn't move for a moment, like she was unsure if he meant it. Then she climbed into his truck without another word. The silence inside the cab was louder than thunder. Her fingers gripped the seatbelt like a lifeline. He didn't ask her name. She didn't ask his. They just drove, gravel crunching beneath the tires as the storm began to howl. Back at the ranch, the dog barked once, then quieted. Even the animals knew something had changed. He didn't have a spare bedroom, but he had a cot in the barn, clean enough, warm enough. She didn't ask for comfort. She asked for escape, and he gave it. The first night she didn't sleep. Neither did he. He heard her whispering to herself, sometimes crying, sometimes cursing names he didn't recognize. Names she'd buried in shame and memory. By morning, she was silent again. It took 3 days before she spoke more than a sentence. She didn't ask where she was. Didn't ask who he was. She just helped, fed the chickens, hauled hay, even stitched a saddle he hadn't used in years. She didn't wait for permission. She worked like she needed it to survive. Maybe she did. He didn't push her. He didn't ask the questions circling his mind. But the town noticed. They always notice. A rancher who never brought a woman to church suddenly had someone working his field. The whispers started like fireflies, small and flickering. But they multiplied quickly, filling the town with lightless noise. They said she was dangerous. That she had a past. That she was trouble. But trouble was what she was running from, not what she brought. One night, as the fire crackled low and her fingers trembled around a mug of coffee, she looked at him and said, "You don't want to know what they did to me. But I need to tell someone. Just once." He nodded, eyes fixed on the floor, bracing himself. "They locked me in that barn like an animal," she whispered. "For weeks. They said I deserved it. That I brought shame to the town. But I didn't do anything. Just loved the wrong man. The wrong name." She took a shaky breath. "He was a preacher's son. He lied. Said he'd marry me. Then he left. When I told the truth, they punished me instead of him." He didn't speak. His hands were tight around the mug. "They said I seduced him. That I tempted him. But I was 17. He was 30. They beat me. Burned my clothes. Called me a curse. Then they threw me into that barn and told everyone I ran away." She laughed bitterly. "But I was right there. Locked in. For weeks." He looked at her then, really looked. Not as a victim, not as a burden, but as someone still standing, even after everything was done to break her. "You can stay here," he said simply. "As long as you need." She nodded, tears sliding silently down her face. From that night on, she began to come alive. Slowly, carefully, like a flower learning it was spring again. She began humming as she worked. She braided the horses' manes. She stitched patches into his old coats. She baked bread from scratch and fed the strays that wandered close. She built a life where one had been stolen. But the town didn't forget. They came, first with questions, then with warnings. "She doesn't belong here," the sheriff said. "She's bringing shame on your name," the pastor warned. "She's a liar," said a woman with trembling hands and sharp eyes. "She bewitched my son." The rancher said nothing, just stood on his porch, arms crossed, as they hurled their words like stones. But when they were done, and the dust had settled, he said one thing. "If she's so dangerous, why did none of you come looking for her when she disappeared?" Silence. They left, but they weren't done. 2 nights later, someone set fire to the barn. She screamed as flames danced across the roof. He rushed in, cutting the horses loose, dragging hay bales into the dirt. Together they fought back the fire until it was nothing but smoke and ashes. She collapsed in the dirt, coughing, her eyes wild. "They'll never let me live," she cried. "They'll never let me be." He knelt beside her. "Then we leave, together." She looked at him like he was mad. "You'd give all this up, for me?" "I already did," he said. They left the next morning, before sunrise. He left a note nailed to the porch: "I'd rather live with her truth than your lies." No one in that town saw them again. Years passed. A different state, a small farm, new soil, same sun. They worked the land side by side. Built something not out of pity, but out of resilience. People in the new town asked where they came from. They didn't answer. But slowly, people stopped asking. Because here, she smiled without fear, laughed without flinching, danced barefoot in the rain. And when she sang to the trees, even the wind seemed to hush. One evening, as they watched the sun sink behind the hills, she turned to him and whispered, "I used to think love was something that broke me." He looked at her. "And now," she smiled softly, "now I know love is what helped me survive." He reached for her hand. "You saved me too, you know." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Maybe we saved each other." And just like that, the shame the town tried to bury her in turned to dust. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a woman who rose from fire, found love in a stranger, and rebuilt a life from ruins. And no matter how many storms rolled in, no matter how loud the past howled through the trees, she knew one thing now. She was never going back. Because sometimes, salvation doesn't come with sirens or prayers. Sometimes, it comes in a dusty truck, driven by a lonely rancher, who looks at a trembling woman and says, "Get in, dash dash dash." Let me know if you'd like a voiceover script version, or background music suggestions for this YouTube story.